Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Healer Revolution. I am your host, Amanda Panacea. Today I'm thrilled to host the inspiring Hope Pedraza. She is a multi-certified holistic health practitioner. She is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She's the founder of inBalance, which is a boutique fitness studio, which helps to change lives through Pilates and holistic wellness. But not only does she have this extensive experience in functional nutrition, but she also combines energy work like Reiki and chakra balancing. And she also combines human design to really lay out and empower people to find their true calling, their path in life, their true intuitive superpowers, so that we can use this blend of physical, mental, emotional, and energetics to really get to the root of not only what might be blocking us, maybe why we're struggling, but also to really empower people to lean into who they truly are and thrive with abundance, with love for their gifts, and find their unique calling. So this is a really good conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am your host, Amanda Panacea, and today I'm really excited to get to interview my new friend, Hope Pedraza. Hi, Hope. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you have a lot of background that kind of is similar in a way to the things that I have studied, and it's very impressive. So I'm going to read down some of the things that you have certification-wise and studied. So functional diagnostic nutrition, certified holistic nutritionist, Reiki practitioner, human design guide, NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist, and you also have founded an inBalance Pilates franchise. And you also have Hopeful and Wholesome Wellness podcast. So that is a really long list of things that you've gone and accomplished and done in your life. So I'm excited to hear your history, how you got here, why you decided all these things were really important to study. And I love the pain to passion story. So tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, thanks. I love how you put that. So I think my journey to where I am in like kind of the wellness space started with my background in dance. I danced for 20 plus years of my life, and that led me into Pilates, which led me to start my studio, my Pilates fitness studio. And I'd always been into wellness and movement and kind of in a multi-layered way. Like I was passionate about that, but then I also grew up with, there was a pretty substantial chunk of my life where I had disordered eating behavior. So it was more like an obsessive compulsive thing than like, oh, let's see what's keeping me healthy, that kind of thing, And I mean, I think it served me in multiple ways now, but it kind of led me into multiple different paths along the way. But when I started my studio, my Pilates studio, I wanted to create this like one-stop shop where everybody could get everything they wanted to and all in one place. And so I just started with basic nutrition coaching. So like basic nutrition coaching certification. And when I started working with women, I recognized like, they're coming to me like, I want to drop 10 pounds or I want to tone up or I want to lose, whatever. And when I'm having these conversations with them, I'm recognizing like, okay, what's going on here is a deeper conversation than calories and macros. Like there are hormonal imbalances, there are gut issues, like there are other things at play. So that kind of steered me on the path that I'm on now, going into functional diagnostic nutrition and all of these other things. The energetics, the subconscious piece, the energy piece, all of those, just realizing like there's deeper things going on in the body than like I want to look good in my genes, which is not that that's a bad goal, but I like to go deeper with my clients and like, let's understand why you're here in the first place. And so it just kind of brought me in deeper into my studies and really this desire to work with my clients at a root cause level.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I really want to study nutrition because I really want to know how to take care of myself and to reverse my health issues. And then as you're on your own journey, you're kind of realizing like, well, why did I have this disordered eating? Why do I
Mm-hmm.
have these beliefs that these foods are bad? Why
Yep.
do and you start to uncover the layers of
Yeah.
that programming too. So that's awesome.
Mhm. Yep.
And so tell us a little bit about um, why you started studying the energetics and why
Mm.
that led you into that whole
Yeah.
category of Reiki and human
Mhm.
design and all that.
Yeah, I think part of it was my own like spiritual journey, I guess. And then the other part was just also that perpetual desire to like really like go deeper and deeper with my clients. But I think initially it started with my own journey. I found human design um 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago at this point, with just a spiritual business coach I was working with. She wasn't a human design expert by any means, but there was like this little piece in the work I was doing with her that was like just kind of, what's your type kind of thing. And that was the first taste I got. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to know more. Like I need to know more about this. I need to dive deeper into this. And so that kind of brought me into human design and really understanding me and who I was, how I was here to operate, how I was divinely designed to be and do in my business and in life, relationships, all those things. And so that kind of, I think that was kind of the catalyst for a lot of my spiritual growth over the past few years, and then wanting to dive deeper into that with my clients too. Like you said a second ago, like figuring out where these programming is coming from, these things that these beliefs that I have, like how did I get there in the first place, and how is this affecting my hormones and my gut and all these other pieces. So just recognizing that that piece was just another one of these like multi-layered pieces that help me and my clients get to the root cause, and recognizing that while yes, there are physical things showing up on your body, physical symptoms, the headaches, the gut health, the hormone things, bad periods, all these physical things happening, but recognizing that there's an energetic root cause to all of those physical things that are happening in the body. And I think my studies and in Reiki and human design helped me realize that there's these energetic blockages, stagnation, whatever you want to call it, that are affecting how the physical body's operating. And until you address those pieces, like I tell my clients this all the time, like you can take $1,000 worth of supplements every month, but if you're really not going into these energetic emotional pieces, like there's kind of a threshold where your body's only going to do so much, and then we have to go deeper into really why that's happening.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Because we are physical, right? So we need the physical. We can't
Right.
just live on breathing like the breatharians once thought and
Mm-hmm.
sunlight, although sunlight is a big piece of it. We do need
Yes.
the physical building blocks for our body to function. But that, again, like you said, will only get you so far. So tell us a little bit about what is human design, because I actually don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm really interested to find
Yeah.
out. Like, it seems like it just blew up in the last couple years.
Totally. Yes, I agree. I agree because I think even when I first kind of dove into it, it was coming up, but I feel like the past couple years it's just like it's everywhere. So human design in kind of simple terms is essentially your energetic blueprint. So the energetic blueprint of your soul. And so it combines these some ancient teachings with like astrology, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra system, and it puts it together with some more modern day sciences like quantum mechanics, quantum physics, neuroscience, those things, puts it into this body graph. It's called a body graph. It's like your chart, however you want to say it. And it's really how you were designed to be, how you've been designed to be here on earth, how you interact with the world around you, with the energy around you, make decisions, move, breathe, be, all of these things that dictates your, I'm going to say dictates, that sounds like a forcing, but it's just basically affecting how you're operating throughout your life and how energy is moving through you and with you and around you. And like I said, when I kind of first dove into mine, if you've never done, and you can go anywhere, I'll say this, you can go anywhere online and get a free chart. So you can go online, it's one of those things you need your birth date, time and place. You can go anywhere, get your free chart. When you really dive into the pieces of, I mean, it's so validating. That was how I felt, like so validating. So I think freeing is the other word that's coming up for me, recognizing there's these pieces where a lot of pieces I felt at the time I was trying to change or shift, or like for me, I'm a manifest. Do you know your type?
I'm a projector. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I'm a manifesting generator, and which is basically like you're like jack of all trades and you like to do 20,000 things at once, which as you read my intro, like clearly I like to do a lot of different
Yeah.
things, manage them to the fullest. But I for a time I was so frustrated with myself. I'm like, just pick one thing. Like, why can't you just pick one thing and stick with it? I was trying to like put myself in a box, which is not how many gens are meant to operate. So just even that little piece alone was validating where it's like, okay, no, I can do 58 things if I want to. And I can stop one thing without finishing another and go, so yeah, just there's a lot of um like freedom and really understanding how you were divinely created, and understanding how you're meant to operate and using that to maximize your energy and productivity and creativity. And speaking on the physical things, how that affects just like the free flow of life force energy in your body that does affect your physical body and how your physical body is operating.
Yeah. So explain those categories of what you could potentially be, like the projector, the manifesting generator.
Yeah. So there's 5 types: manifestor, generator, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. So manifestors and reflectors are kind of the two or least common. The most common are generators and manifesting generators. So 60% of the population is either a manifesting generator or a generator, which both of those types are very like high energy humans. So they're like the energizer bunnies, like they just never run out of energy. So you can see, like, especially you as a projector, I've worked with a lot of projector clients over the years. There is a lot of conditioning that happens around like projectors and manifestors and reflectors too, but they're just, less common, around having to do all the time because we live in a generator world. 60% of us are running on this like go, 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 do, move.
Mm,
And not everybody's meant to operate that way. So there's a lot of deconditioning that has to happen, especially with I'm most familiar working with manifestors and manifestors and projectors in that sense of deconditioning this perpetual need to just be doing all the time because
yeah.
we're just surrounded by it.
Yeah. That's absolutely something I've had to try and deconstruct for myself. I am absolutely a doer. So what about, I've never heard of anyone being anything but a manifesting generator and a projector. Are
Yeah.
those the two most common, you said?
No, generators and manifesting generators are the most
Oh,
common,
interesting.
but projectors would be the next. So like 20% or so of the population is projector. So would be like the second most common after generators and manifesting
Mm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And what's the big difference with projectors?
generators. Yeah.
Oh, and what's the big difference with projectors?
Sorry, there was a lag there. It was a pause. So can you say the question again?
Yeah, no problem. So what is the big difference with projectors? Are they more slow? Do they need more time to themselves?
Yeah. So projectors have a very sensitive aura, and they're not sacral beings, meaning like, so generators and manifesting generators have a defined sacral center, and that's where their energy comes from. And so projectors are considered non-sacral, meaning they don't have the center defined. So their energy comes in waves. And so projectors typically, when I'm working with projectors, especially we're talking about physical health, projectors typically need more rest time, even more sleep, like actual sleep, not just rest, but sleep too, just in how their energy functions. So whereas generators and mani-gens can go to bed and their sacral like recharges overnight, it's not necessarily the same for projector. Like they're meant to kind of work in spurts and work in phases, needing more rest. And then just having that more sensitive aura where they're more sensitive to the energy coming in around them. And so being able to have discernment on what they're taking in that's theirs and what somebody else's, and like just being mindful of the energy that they're surrounding themselves with, and just also understanding their, I don't want to say limitation because that sounds bad, but
Yeah.
understanding where, I guess boundaries is probably a better word,
Boundaries.
like where
Yeah.
to set boundaries. Yeah, where to set boundaries with their energy, like where they're expending their energy, who they're giving their energy to. Because projectors, so there's the other part of your type is understanding your strategy and your authority. And so understanding like how you best make decisions and how you're here to interact with the world around you. And projectors are unique in the fact that they are meant to wait for the invitation, wait to be recognized for their gifts, their talents, their insight, their wisdom, whatever, which for projector living in a generator world can be really frustrating because you're like, I'm just supposed to wait around for people to recognize. And it's like, yeah, you kind of are. Like, so that's a big thing I have worked a lot with my projector clients is this understanding of what it really means to wait for the invitation. Because basically it's basically not giving unsolicited advice, right? You offering yourself or your wisdom or your insight on somebody who's not ready to hear it, it's going to fall on deaf ears. So it's recognizing that window of opportunity that happens when somebody's ready to receive it. And when you're waiting for that invitation, you're just diving into, studying your craft or your specialty or your, what you're passionate about, and waiting for that invitation to present itself for you to be able to give that, whatever it is, advice, insight, knowledge, whatever, to somebody who's ready to receive it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something that really resonated with me when I read that, because as a Virgo and a firstborn, I tend to have been like a know-it-all.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
And I remember one time my mom said to like one of my exes when I was younger, she knows everything, isn't it annoying? And I was like, oh, people don't want to
Oh,
hear what I have
right.
to say.
You're like, wait, that's a bad thing?
I was like, oh, you don't appreciate the knowledge? And I was
Right.
so, that was the first time anyone had ever said that to me. I was like early, mid-20s or something. So when I read that, I was like, yes, I did learn that lesson.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, learn that one. It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Well, and that's kind of thing too. I had a client, and that's kind of the conversation we had earlier this year. And she felt like, she's like, well, I don't want to feel like a know-it-all. I'm like, well, you kind of do if you're giving unsolicited advice. So like, it's just
Yeah.
kind of like learning when the right time is to like present that to people. And yeah, it's kind of a dance, but every type has this dance like that. Like with generators and manifesting generators, we're here to respond. So it's still, there's kind of this waiting period for us to wait for something to respond to, like waiting for the universe to put something in our path to respond to. So all of us, all the different types have this dance with the universe and with the energy around us. It's just there's just nuances to each of like the dance that we're doing, each of the different types.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know a lot of people are using it for not just like understanding yourself, but also business. Like, how should your marketing look? Which I
Right.
think is pretty fascinating. Is that a way that you're using it as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Understanding?
I do. So I do work mostly with entrepreneurs, business owners. So there is that piece of it. Um, for me, I don't use it as much in that sense as more just like general understanding of how your energy functions and help and using that to optimize your wellness. But for a lot of my clients that we go deeper, like they do the deep work with me, we do end up going into that realm when we're talking about like how to create copy and content and sales and like speaking with clients and sales calls and that kind of thing. Because there's so many tools like within all of these little nuances of your human design to be able to really optimize how you're doing that and showing up in the best possible way and in allowing that to help you build the message that resonates with people because you're doing it in the way you're designed to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is something I even learned kind of recently. I was really trying to hire people to do marketing and ads for me, and I had never done that before. So I was very scared, and I was like, I don't want to waste money. I really want to have a team that knows what they're doing, that's done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all of my clients and my people that responded were like, rewrite it. This doesn't sound like you. This is not you. This is not your message. And I was like,
Yep.
gosh, they're right. And I had to rewrite it because I was like, they're totally right. So I love how like with human design and some of these things, it helps you to really target into your superpowers so that you're not thinking like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I don't know how to do this. I have to hire other people to do this because the way I'm doing it is wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, and it's such a good example. I have a friend of mine, in the same, she's an functional practitioner as well. But she uses human design. She doesn't teach human design, but uses it just for her own self. And she's also a projector. But when she hires people on her team, she requires them to tell her what their human design is because she knows where her again, with the limitations word, but she knows where she has certain limitations with her energy and she wants a generator or a mani-gen to help like fill in those energetic gaps. And so even that part alone, like building a team and using that to build a team is just, I think it's a brilliant way to build, just knowing like just basically putting people where their superpowers are. And so they can use their own powers to like do what they're best, what they're best at.
Yeah, excellent. And I know you're running testing too with your clients. How do you overlap? What kind of tests do you use, and how do you overlap this into like making protocols or
Yeah.
recommendations and lifestyle changes?
Yeah. So the kind of first step for me would be the labs. Like if somebody's going through like the whole shebang with me, like they're going like, I want to go deep, I want to do it all. Because of course there's options to do like I just want to do the labs or just want to do human design. If we're doing
Mhm.
the whole thing and like you said, like putting all the pieces together, the labs are kind of that first step. So we can get this baseline of like, okay, here's exactly what's going on in your physical body. Like we know your hormones are doing this, your gut's doing this, like here's the physical things that are going on. So then, we create protocols around that, the physical parts. But then the deeper part comes with, okay, let's look at your human design, see how your energy is moving. Let's look at your defined centers versus undefined centers. And if you're familiar with the chakra centers, that's kind of where human design and the chakra centers coincide. So there's energy centers on your human design chart, and it kind of correlates with your chakra centers. But looking at, where your energy is flowing through your centers, because we know, well, maybe you don't know, but a lot of us know if you're looking at the chakra system, all the chakras correspond with specific glands and organs, which correspond to specific hormones. And so for me, that's where I tie in the physical and the energetic pieces. We're looking at defined versus undefined centers on a human design chart, looking at where is the energy flowing, where are there possible like log jams that could happen in your energy, where is that affecting certain glands, certain hormones, certain organs, so we can kind of put the pieces together there. And then the other layer of that is kind of going into the subconscious work and kind of those thought patterns that we mentioned earlier is again using your chart to see kind of where is there possible conditioning or deconditioning that needs to happen that's kind of perpetuating these energetic log jams in your body that's not allowing your energy to flow freely, that's affecting these specific parts of your physical body.
And then what are some of the recommendations that happen after that?
Yeah, no, good question. So the protocol itself is, it's a combination of nutrition, certain nutrition recommendations. We're adding some things in, taking some things away. There's intentional supplementation. So we have specific stages of the protocol. We're using specific supplements. And then the other part of it is the energetic work. I call them quantum healing sessions. So we have sessions where I'm incorporating things like hypnotherapy, NLP, energy work, emotional release. So we're working on the energetic body to figure out where in the body these things are, what's ready to be released to kind of rewire, decondition, like pull back the layers on things to kind of let things out and let the energy start moving back in the body again.
Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar with NLP, what does that stand for?
Yeah, so it's neuro-linguistic programming. And so it's using specific language where you're putting all five senses together to rewire your brain and reprogram the brain, your thoughts, your patterns, beliefs. And for me, the whole like rewiring your brain piece is, I mean, for me, that's what human design is all about. It's like understanding where your conditioning is and the deconditioning part that I've mentioned a few times now. That's what it is. It's just a rewiring. It's uncovering what's mine, what's somebody else's, which is a is a big, what's the word I want to use? It can be a daunting task to look at it as a whole. Like because we've especially if you've lived 30, 40, 50 years of your life a specific way. Like there's a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that has since you were born, before you were born even that you were born with that are not yours. Like they're not your beliefs. They're not your patterns. They're things that, generationally, culturally, your family, if you believe in past lives, like all of these things are in your genetic being. And it's just, again, it's this peeling back one layer at a time to figure out what's mine, what's somebody else's, what have I been carrying this far in my life that's not mine, that I'm ready to let go of, so that now my energy can flow more freely in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. The patterns that make us who we are is a collective of all of these programs and everything
Mhm.
we've experienced and everything that we believe.
Yep.
And it's funny, sometimes people have that realization like, oh no, like my whole entire personality, everything that I do is this walking trauma response, and I have
Yes.
so much work to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that was kind of a piece of my journey when I first discovered human design, because I realized like so many opinions that I had weren't even really my opinions. I'm like, wait, I don't even agree with that. Like, why do I even believe that? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And we grew up in a time period where the internet wasn't even invented
Yeah.
yet. So there was no, let me check on the facts
Yes.
on this.
Right. Exactly. Let me fact check this. Yeah, there was none of that.
And, the 90s TV was horrific for women. Everyone was either like Pamela Anderson or MTV. So it was a
Yes.
lot of programming about like, who do I need to be?
Yep.
How do I need to act at
Yep.
that? I mean, everyone still gets that today,
Sure.
absolutely, especially with social media. But I feel like the collective back then was a little different because
Yeah.
there was no social media and it was
Yeah.
just here's this one type of woman to
Mm-hmm.
become.
Exactly. Exactly. And and that was kind of like all of that. It MTV and diet culture, like all of that was the same era. And
Yeah.
that was like the pinnacle of my, disordered eating behavior. It's like, no, we have to look this way. And I have to, so it's totally like there's so much to untangle and rewire. And yeah, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, but it is absolutely possible. So,
Totally.
when I first start working with someone, I'll try to explain like it's not like you have to do every event in your life that's been
Exactly. Yes,
bad.
exactly. And that's such a good point because I have people think they have to like relive all their trauma. Like we don't have to
Yeah.
relive it all. Like
No.
that's not the point.
Exactly. Yeah, like we can pull on one of those like bottom beliefs
Yep.
that may collapse a whole
Exactly.
entire belief system above
Yep.
you.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be painful. It can be pleasurable. It can be fun. It doesn't have to look like deep trauma work and
Right.
reliving everything, like you said.
Yep.
Awesome. So what are some of the testing that you use in your practice that you find are the most helpful that overlap well with the other things that you're doing, the quantum
Yeah.
session?
Yeah. So I have 3 foundational labs that I run with my clients. Of course, there's a million other labs I can run, but
Yeah.
the three foundational ones I use, I find give the most important data where we can start to like find patterns and connect dots. I use the Dutch test, which is really comprehensive hormone test. And, all the labs that I use, I'll say this first. You can go to your doctor and get blood labs, right? You can go do blood labs. And for a lot of cases, blood labs are helpful. And I do typically like to put that together with what I'm doing. Like they go to their doctor, they get a blood lab, whatever. But the labs that I'm doing are going to go 20 layers deeper than a blood lab. And so for the Dutch test, the hormone test, it's a dried urine test. You pee on some paper. It's super simple, but it's going to go like 20 layers deeper than a blood lab would, just checking on your estrogen levels or progesterone, whatever, because it's looking at the metabolites of different hormones, how they're interacting with each other, how they're being converted and cleared in your liver, how your body's detoxifying. Like, there's so many other layers we're looking at, your cortisol pattern, how your cortisol is working in your body. The second lab I do is a GI map, which the poop test. I always tell my clients it's not super glamorous, but it is really helpful. So it's one of my favorites. But it's a really comprehensive look at the gut, the good and bad gut bacteria. There's pathogens, parasites. There's a ton of intestinal health markers to see how you're digesting protein and fat and your gut lining, the lining of your gut's immune system. And then the third one, which is my favorite, and I talk about it the most, is the HTMA, which is the hair, tissue, and mineral analysis. And this one for me is my favorite to tie in together with all these energetic pieces, which all of them I can do that. But I like the minerals because minerals, and you might have heard, and your listeners might have heard this before, are considered the spark plugs in the body because everything starts from that. Like they're the catalyst for every reaction in the body. You have to have the minerals as this foundational piece in your cells to start all the other reactions. So all your hormones and enzymes and neurotransmitters, at some point, like minerals are required to make those work and make them do what they're supposed to do. And so I like this as this foundational piece because it is what's going on at a cellular level. But then if we go back to what I was saying before about how your chakra system, your chakras, your energy centers are connected to different glands and organs, and are those related to different hormones, their specific minerals are also related to those specific hormones. So that's where I start to like weave those pieces together because I can look at your mineral testing and I can see individually these are what these different minerals are doing. And then we look at the ratios between the minerals and you could see what your thyroid and um your your liver and your detoxification system and your blood sugar and your adrenals, all these other pieces. And that's where I can really start to tie in, okay, your adrenal ratio is telling us this. This is happening with your adrenals. Your adrenals are tied to your root center. So here's all these things that are happening. So now we can start to really put all these pieces together. So that's the only lab that I offer as like a standalone lab. Otherwise, it's like we do the 3 so we can get all the data. but I love being able to dive into, like, I love geeking out on the minerals, but then I also love geeking out on putting that together with the energetic pieces and really looking at, okay, how is this affecting, how are your energy centers affecting this? Like, where do we need to, balance these parts out in the energetic bodies? So I love putting all of that together.
Yeah, absolutely. That is my top two tests that I run on everyone as well, because
Yeah.
of the amount of information you can
Mm-hmm.
pull from it. And it's not easy to read. Like when I
Yes,
first
exactly.
started, I was like, oh, this must be how you read it. I've got a
Yep.
master's. I should be able to understand that.
Right.
And I was totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, I definitely wasn't looking at it right. Maybe the first like 6 months. And then I started really diving into other people who were doing it correctly. And I was like, I got to take a course because.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And I tell my clients that too, because I've had clients come to me that like a friend or a doctor friend or whatever ran it, but then they also don't know how to interpret it. So they're like, here's your
Yeah.
lab. And then they give it to them and they're like, what do I do with this? So like you really do need someone who knows how to interpret it because it's not like what you see at face value. It requires interpretation.
Yeah. I tell everyone high doesn't mean high, low doesn't mean low.
Exactly.
And sometimes it changes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So true.
So it can be a little tricky to understand, but yeah. Not only that, but I love the like psychological profiles that you can pull from that test as well.
Mhm.
Like the calcium shell literally described my entire personality when I first had it.
Mm.
And I had a massive calcium shell back in like 2015. The first test I ever did, it was like almost 600.
Oh my
And yeah,
gosh.
it was really
Holy
bad.
cow.
I had been through a lot of trauma. I'd been using drugs and drinking, binge
Sure.
drinking for a really long time, and a horribly traumatic breakup. So it was never that high again. Luckily, it was like 400, I think, the next time.
My gosh.
But when I read about that pattern, I was like, I finally figured it out. This is what is
Yep.
happening to me physically and
Yeah.
why I feel this way.
Right.
But as you know, coming back to those subconscious patterns, the trauma, the nervous system, the
Hmm.
energetics, that was why that was
Yeah.
happening. So the
Yeah.
physical presentation
Yep.
was that. Yeah.
Yep. For
So
sure.
tell us a little bit about the most common patterns that you see women in that you work with that come up on HTMA.
The calcium shell for sure. I see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those calcium and I've talked about this one client before in my like multiple times in posts just because it was such a crazy. She had calcium shell, and then we did some quantum healing sessions, and she had these crazy emotional releases, and I mean it was just like a switch flipped in her body, and everything started. I mean it's like when things shift, they shift, and that's the cool thing about like putting all of these pieces together. Is it's like
Yeah.
just need one domino to knock over the rest for everything to just start clicking. So the calcium shell for sure is definitely a big one. And I'd say like slow thyroid and adrenals are also very common, like sluggish thyroid, sluggish adrenals, and those patterns. Kind of like, the burnout pattern is very common. Um, I worked with a lot of women's and that are considered what, the pattern of four lows pattern, which is basically everything is low, like everything's sufficient, like you're just running on empty.
Yeah.
And then copper too. I'd say copper dysregulation I mean, gosh, I'd say like, I dare to say it's probably like 85, 90% of the labs I run. There's like copper dysregulation happening in the body. And again, kind of going with your talking about that psychological patterns, things that show up in how your mood and that kind of stuff happens also with the copper dysregulation. So yeah, those are probably some of the most common.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Calcium shell, four lows, and everyone's got that copper dysregulation. And I work with a lot of people that also are dealing with histamine issues and mast cell activation. So
Mhm.
I'm like, it's probably even higher in the people that I
Yeah,
work with as
yeah,
well.
for sure.
I'm interested, how does the copper dysregulation show up in maybe some of the other things that you do, like personality type or
Mm.
some of the other things that they struggle with, maybe physically or emotionally?
Yeah, so for my clients who deal with like pretty intense copper dysregulation, anxiety is a big piece of that. A lot of anxiety, a lot of brain fog. Um, I've had clients where like just like overall I'd say mental function, like remembering things and like thinking, brain, like that's just like one of the biggest things that come to me. It's like, I can't remember things. My brain is foggy all the time. So I'd say brain fog and anxiety are probably the two most common in the clients I work with that have that.
Yeah, for me, it's also the histamine crowd, the mast cell
Mhm.
activation. And then also, do you see that showing up like in correlation with estrogen dominance on the Dutch
Yeah,
test?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, the estrogen dominance is, yeah. And strangely enough, I also have like the past three consults I've had with the Dutch test, also even having just super low hormones all around. Like one of my clients, like if I were to look at this, I'd be like, oh, this woman's purely like menopausal. And no, she's not. She's in her 30s and just her hormones are just tanked. So I've
Hmm.
also seen it show up there with like, the low progesterone affecting like brain fog and anxiety, that kind of thing too. So yeah, it shows up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, yeah, totally makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
And some of the one of my favorite people to learn from, hopefully I'll have him on the podcast at some point. He also corresponds the minerals with astrology. So
Mm.
he talks a lot about like copper being the feminine, and zinc being the masculine, and every planet being associated with a different
Oh my
mineral.
gosh, I love that.
I'll send you his information.
Yes,
For those
please.
listening, it's Dr. Salig. He's got an incredible YouTube.
Oh my gosh, I gotta check him out. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's been using the HTMA over like 20, 30 years. So he's
So cool.
yeah. So I love that the way that people use this information and combine it with the other things like
Other
with human
things, yeah.
design. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super fascinating.
Love it.
So tell us a little bit more about how we physically might be using HTMA, like how the protocols can help, but then also, I guess my question is how it's not going to be enough if you're still living in the same stress patterns, in the same
Yeah.
bad relationship, same bad
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. I mean, here's the thing. I am a firm believer that, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again, that everything happening on the physical body has this energetic, emotional root cause. Like we don't just randomly have, this is what I believe. You can disagree if you want, but we don't just randomly have these physical things happening in our body just because. There is some sort of energetic, emotional root cause for that. And so, yes, like you said before, like the physical parts are important. Like we want to take care of our adrenals, get our hormones in check, our gut, all of these things. Like those are great. And it's gonna help. But if the emotional root cause, the energetic root cause, or yes, it's the patterns, the beliefs, it's certain behaviors that are perpetual, then yeah, you're just gonna revert back. So like it's really like that is the real root cause. If you want to talk about getting to the root cause, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast, like you want to talk about getting to the root cause, like you have to go there. Like we have to talk about the deep work. And I know it's not what everybody wants to talk about because they just want to know like what's a supplement that's going to fix it all. It's like, okay, yeah, that but you like I said, you could spend $1 million on supplements, but if you haven't gone to those deeper layers, it's just going to pop back up. And that's why majority of my clients come to me after work. They've been to all the doctors. I'm sure you can attest to this too. They've been to all the doctors. They've even worked with other functional practitioners and their symptoms keep coming back. There's a reason they keep coming back. We haven't really gotten to the root cause. There are these subconscious things, there's these patterns that are playing out in your energetic body that are causing these physical things to show back up. So it's for me, you can't have one without the other. And I sometimes feel like, we talk about Western medicine and, separating the mind from the body, but I also feel like functional medicine can do the same thing if we're not really getting to the root cause. Like, yeah, we can do it in a more natural way, but if we're still not getting to that emotional, energetic root cause, it's still not really getting to the root cause.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned you work with people who sometimes don't even want to do testing,
Hmm.
which I run into those people as well. They're like, I've
Hmm.
taken so many supplements. Everything has either made me worse or it
Yep.
has done absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And I'm just done. I don't want to know what's going on with my physical body. I
Yep.
don't want to know the test results.
Yep.
I've spent $100,000 on this stuff. And sometimes all it takes is understanding how to do the inner work
Yeah.
and what's really behind the wheel with
For
those
sure.
programs that are running. Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I love that. And so what does your practice look like? Because I love to, listen to pain, passion, but also how are we running a business? Because you sound so passionate about these things. You've done so much great work. How is this fulfilling your life now? And how have you made this like your lifestyle?
Yeah. I think I think the journey, I mean, the journey I've been on is also like the journey I'm taking my clients on, which is like, I learned about human design and I want to take this to my clients. So I think throughout my own journey, I've recognized like what I'm really here for. And my human design has been a huge part of that, like diving into human design and studying it and studying it and studying it and recognizing, my purpose and the message I'm here to bring out. And I think just owning that part has been a huge part in me, just this kind of the unfolding. And I I really am here, like, I really do feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose, and it's, it's evolved over the years, like, when I started my studio, I guess a little over 12 years ago, so I've had my studio over 12 years ago, and it's totally changed how I thought it would originally, like, it's still the original intent, which is, like, I want people to feel good, and I want them to move for the joy of movement and not, have like more of like a moving because it's fun and not because I want to be skinny kind of vibe in the studio. So like it still has the same, I have the same goal, but it's just changed. Like there's a deeper mission, there's a deeper work that I want to do with the clients that come in. And the same is with my same thing can be said for my online business. Like there's just this deep, I know that I am here to live, a super fulfilling life and a super fulfilling existence, that I'm here to play out to live out my purpose, and that all of us are, within this collective puzzle. All of us have a place, a piece that we're supposed to play, a part that we're supposed to play in this puzzle. And so I just want my mission is just to help people find that and to not be limited by the physical things that are happening on their body, and for them to be able to sort through these layers of conditionings for them to really find their that light in their soul that was here when they were first born, and to be able to sort through the conditioning so they can really find their own purpose too, to live this fulfilling, joyful life that I want to live. So I just want to help people do the same.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I always say, if you're not coming back to me after 3 to 6 months, like I did a good
You did
job.
your
I
job.
don't,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't want to keep seeing you.
For
I want,
sure.
I want you to figure this stuff out
Yes.
yourself. And
Exactly
I'll
it.
do follow-up emails, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, I got it. It clicked."
Hmm. That's
In
it.
a variety of ways. Yeah,
I
awesome.
love
So
that.
what would you say are some of the biggest blocks that you see in the clientele that you work with that tends to hold people back or tends to keep them kind of spinning their wheels?
Hmm. I think because I work mostly with women, I do work with some men, but it's mostly women. I think for me, the two biggest things that come up the most are shame and guilt and how that's affecting the body. And I have a story that I tell this all the time, but I feel like it's worth telling. I had a client and she came to me with a lot of reproductive things, hormonal things going on, and she's kind of having these patterns of cysts and, clear signs of estrogen dominance in her body, gaining weight and energy and all this stuff. And so, of course, we did the labs, and I wasn't surprised by anything we saw in the labs, but then we dove into some of these quantum healing sessions. And so there's one particular session we dove into, and I asked her to go in, and she was pinpointing exactly where she was feeling the resistance in her body, right? And she very specifically identified her left ovary. That's what she told me. It was like she was describing it, the shape, and all these things. And it was like this nail in her left ovary. And so when we started to unpack what was there, it was shame. And it was a specific instant when she was a kid, and shame was at the root of it. And so we had this huge release. She's crying, she's releasing things, she's releasing the stories around it. She messages me 2 days later and tells me she's in the hospital because she had a cyst rupture. I'll give you one guess where it was. It was in her left ovary, specifically her left ovary. Like, oh my gosh. Like, so that story sticks with me so much because it's just like, it's such a testament to what this work actually does. And people can say it's woo or whatever. I'm telling you it works. And I'm telling you that I've seen it time and time again, these huge, massive releases that people have with me. And then all of a sudden, all these other things happen. So to get back to your original question, the shame and the guilt for me are the most common things that show up when I'm walking clients through these processes. And there's so many reasons for that. Like, right, this is like a topic for another podcast episode, I'm sure. Like the patriarchy, like generational trauma, like there's all these things. We're born with it. And we really, as women, we're born with it in our body. Generationally, we are born with shame. It lives in our DNA and it causes so much disruption in our body. And if you've never read Brene Brown's books, like she talks about this all the time about shame and vulnerability and how it affects women. So go listen to her or read her books. But the shame, and especially for women, shame is an emotion that lives in the sacral center, which our sacral center is connected to our reproductive organ. So of course, so many women have so many issues with their hormones and reproductive system and fertility and all these things. It's, for me, that's what it is. Like, yes, there are multiple factors at play, but I really do believe that the shame is such a big piece of that, and this the shame living in our body and just affecting how we're operating.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely. And even like in my own healing, the number one thing that has brought me the most peace, openness, expansiveness was learning how to be vulnerable about that shame, because it's
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
embarrassing. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you don't want to tell people. You
Yep.
go into the calcium shell to prevent
Yes.
people from seeing you,
Exactly.
to block other people out of your life and to
Yep.
protect yourself. And
Yep.
that openness where you are like, okay, here I am, all the flaws, all the messiness. I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I this is what actually, and people, of course, still being like, okay, we see you and we still trust you. We
Yeah.
still love you.
Yeah.
We still are here for you.
Mhm.
That in relationships and like on social media, like I was building a practice while I was sick, you know? So it was like
Mm.
imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, of course,
Yes.
and still having people coming to me being like, I still trust you. I still believe in you.
Mhm.
I still like you. I still
Yep.
am going to be here for you. It's just absolutely the
Sure.
best healing medicine.
For sure.
And I think that's probably why when you do that one-on-one work, I know that that's a part of it. When you witness the other person having those moments, being honest with themselves, having those releases, that is also what heals, you know?
Yep. Yep. 100%.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure you have people that pass parasites after your, um,
Yes.
yeah, that's your
Yes. All the poop stories. We talk about poop a lot. Lots of poop stories happen after these releases. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about parasites for a little bit, actually, because you know, it's also one of those things that came across social media like a storm. Like everybody has to parasite cleanse, but then I'm sure you worked with people who just they got so much worse. Let's talk about the energetics of parasites. Why do you think so many women are dealing with parasites?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same answer I give people when they're like asking how they got anything. Like that's like what made you a hospitable host, right? That's the right
Yeah.
question we should be asking. Like, how did this happen? How did I get this? How did I catch this? How do I have this autoimmune thing? How do I have all this stuff in my gut? Why do I have parasites? Like, what made you a hospitable host? That's the best question to ask, right? And I think all the other stuff we've been talking about, there's multiple layers to this. But I do think that that's the right question to ask is what makes us a hospitable host for anything? Is it, and I think it does go back to those energetic pieces and these kind of layers of subconscious junk that gets stuck down in there and that's kind of causing us to hold on to things. I think that's how all of it happens. I think it's just there's so much the clients that I work with is there's it's like a lot of mystery symptoms going on. There's like multiple layers of symptoms. And I think it's just this overall, like overarching inflammation in the body. And that's just from these layers of subconscious things that are stuck in our body, these energetic blockages. And yeah. Sorry, that was kind of skirting around the answer. But basically, I just think the right question is how are you a hospitable host? And because I think when the thing people want to know when they get the parasite local happened, I never got food poisoning or I
Yeah.
didn't travel outside the country and I didn't like you can get a parasite anywhere. You can get parasite walking outside. But it's how were you a
Yeah.
hospitable host that it decided to stay in there and make a home and cause inflammation in the body.
Yeah, and parasites are the cleanup crew. So they are
Right.
symbiotic with us. So they're not inherently bad, but when they're to a point where you've got eczema or severe gut issues, they're overgrowing, like you said, maybe to protect you from the other amounts of toxicity
Right.
that are overgrowing, accumulating. But I also think of parasites, especially for women, as like, who's a parasite in your life? Like, who is
Mm,
sucking the energy out of you?
yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
your partner? Is it your children? Is it your mother-in-law? Like,
That's so true.
and are you people pleasing and being
Yes.
nice and not
Yes.
setting boundaries?
Yes.
Because then they're going to keep sucking the energy out of you.
Absolutely. Once again, tied to the sacral and the root center is also associated with the lower GI tract. So that also
Mm,
tracks. Yeah.
yep, exactly. So I love it. Lovely. So, I work with mostly women as well. Why do you think it's just women experiencing this? Or do you feel like maybe men just aren't seeking out this kind of work? Do you have any theories?
I mean, that's a great question. I think yes to all of that. I think, I do think, I felt like a friend of mine had this conversation a while back. I do feel like part of it is like, I do think men deal with this stuff and they either just don't see anything or their egos are like, oh no, I'm fine or whatever. But I
Yeah.
also think that women are inherently just more in tune with their body. And so we recognize things at a different level than men. And so I just think I don't know, I just feel like women experience it different because feel, we just have a different sense of self-awareness in our bodies. Some more than others, but like I've always, since I was a kid, I've always felt like I was just super hyper aware of my body. And when I was pregnant, both times, I was like, I just feel like I can feel everything happening in my body. Like I don't know if I want to, but I just like just so hyper aware of everything happening. But I do think women inherently are just more aware of what's going on in their bodies, um, for the most part. And so I think that we experience it different. But I also do think that there is a level of men either not thinking they don't need help or they can like man their way through it or whatever. And I think women too, a lot of women, at least the women that I work with, and I'm sure it's the same with you, the women who are seeking out like people like us working at this level, it's like even if they're not falling apart at the seams, they recognize that there's this level of optimal that they deserve to get to. It's
Mhm.
like my client yesterday, we had a call and she was saying that we've worked together for a while now. We were doing like a follow-up, did some follow-up labs and stuff. And she was like kind of apologizing for like doing more work. She's like, I know, I'm like, I'm healthy. Like I don't feel bad. I'm like, don't like you're in a perfect place now where you're in good health and you just want to get to optimal. Like there's nothing to apologize for that. Like I think if you can recognize like as women, like we deserve to feel amazing. We deserve to live in optimal health. And I think more and more women are recognizing that that is a part of um, like that plays such a part in their quality of life and their longevity and the legacy they want to leave behind and how they're operating in their business or their career, whatever. Like that health, well-being piece plays such a part. And yeah, I think women just have a different perspective on that part of themselves.
Mm. Yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing I kind of think of is the women that are finding us are also, looking outside the box. They've probably
Yes.
been gaslit by Western medicine
Yep.
for one too many
Yep.
generations
Yep. For sure.
and told it was all in their head and
Mm-hmm.
told that this was normal. And, so they
Yep.
are like, well, I'm going to go to the alternative medicine.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
going to
Yes.
go to
Right. Air quotes there.
Right. Air quotes.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because people might be listening. But yeah, and I'm going to find an alternative way that resonates with me and makes sense for me.
Yes.
Whereas men don't really get as much of the gaslighting.
Yes.
They
Exactly
don't,
it.
and I feel like men also probably are seeking out more, I don't want to use the word masculine per se, but more like very cut and dry
Yes.
solutions to their
Traditional. Yeah.
practical solutions to their
Yes,
problems.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly. That's very true. And I will say that is the big difference for me. I don't know if you ever work with men, but that's the biggest difference for me
Mhm.
when, especially when I'm going over lab work. Like the men want to know, like very analytical, like what the
Yeah.
numbers mean, like meh, 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 meh. Like it's all like you said, very cut and dry. Tell me what it is, and then so yeah, it is definitely a different perspective. But the medical gaslighting thing is such a good point, and I've talked about that on my podcast a handful of times too. And there's so many stories, like, and so many statistics around all of that, which is like really maddening if you dive deep into it, but that is a big part of it. I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of where we are. And I think, yeah, women are getting fed up with it. Like, oh, you're just getting older, or you need
Yeah.
to get on Xanax. Like, or, it's like, I think women are recognizing that that's not a valid excuse anymore for how they feel.
And even some of the terminology for women, they used to use the word hysteria back like, 60 years ago. But
Yes.
today, even they're still saying geriatric pregnancy, which just
Yes.
kills me.
So offensive. It's so offensive. Like, can we not?
Yes, exactly. Like, and recognizing I don't like how that feels in my body. I don't feel
Right.
geriatric
Yeah,
at
right.
35. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Oh,
of course,
gosh.
I do want to say, as much as social media is annoying, we have so much information out now. Like, can you imagine if you were, 15, 16, going through this disordered eating patterns and you could literally find someone that could help you through that instead
Yes.
of the shame of being like, I
Yes.
don't want to admit to anyone because
Yes.
nobody's dealing with this but me.
100%.
So social media can absolutely be a blessing for, getting information out there and finding
Mhm.
people that can help you.
Yes, I agree.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how to work with you. Do you have any programs? How to find your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is Hopeful and Wholesome, and it's anywhere you get your podcast. My website is the same, hopefulandwholesome.com. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at the Hope Pedraza. And yeah, I mean, I have a whole gamut of programs and programs with me, just depending on the level of support you want, how deep you want to go, what your focus is. I have human design programs. I have just quantum healing programs. I have all of it with the lab. So lots of different options, just kind of depending on where you are and what your goals are, what kind of support you're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll put all of that in the show notes. Is there anything else you want people to know if they're struggling out there?
I think my parting words, my parting wisdom, I feel like I always want to lead people with this, even though I'm sure everybody listening hears this all the time and they know, but it's just listening to your body. I feel like we can't hear that enough. And you mentioned the medical gaslighting thing, and this conversation I have to have with women all the time is like, if your body is telling you something doesn't feel right, then it's not. And just to listen to your body. And if you feel like you're being gaslit by whoever, whether it's a doctor, friend, family member, practitioner, whatever, like keep looking for answers until you get the answers that's actually going to help, because your body has all the answers. Your body is giving you the signs and the signals. And I think it's time that we stop dismissing and pushing those things away and like really listen to our bodies and own the fact that we are meant to live, our bodies are designed to live well. And so it's just finding the right help and support to get us there.
Very well said. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah. All right, Hope. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was absolutely a pleasure. I love everything that you're doing. I'm so glad that you're out there helping other people. And, the theme of this podcast is healed people heal people, or heal people help others heal, I should say.
I
Not.
love that. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. I am just so thrilled that you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This has been a huge passion project for me and super therapeutic on top of that, helping me to use my voice and connect with other like-minded individuals. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. Please share on social media or with your audience or friends or loved ones. I truly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time and financial costs to run the podcast, and it is not a moneymaker, let me tell you. So if you are enjoying this, I would truly appreciate your support just by sending me a post, a like, and a subscribe. Thank you so much.